If you have ever been to a Hausa wedding before, then you know the real drama doesn't always come from the bride or groom. It usually comes from the uncles, those men who believe bride price is an investment and not a cultural symbol. That was exactly the situation in Kofar Na'isa, a modest neighborhood on the edge of Kano. Amina was ready to marry Yusuf, a young schoolteacher known for his patience with stubborn students and his deep voice that could calm a classroom of rowdy teenagers. Their love was not the loud type. It was built in quiet corners, by the neighborhood kiosk where Yusuf would buy her zobo, under the neem tree where they exchanged poetry, in stolen glances during compound chores. But then, there was Uncle Dogo. Dogo was Amina's mother's elder brother, and he was famous for two things: his ever-moving prayer beads and his never-ending appetite for money. He walked like a man with secrets but talked like a man with debts. His permanent frown made people wonder if he practiced it in front of a mirror. When talk of Amina's marriage came up, everyone knew he would turn the happy occasion into a business meeting. One hot evening, Dogo summoned the families to the courtyard. With a dramatic cough and a theatrical clearing of his throat, he brought out a list so long it looked like a roll of fabric. For the dignity of this house, he began, Yusuf must provide the following: 5 cows, 10 goats, 20 wrappers, a new mattress, crates of mineral, cash no less than 500,000 naira, and a motorcycle for family logistics. The neighbors gasped. One woman whispered, "Is this a marriage or a supermarket opening?" Another muttered, 5 cows? Even Salah is not this serious. Yusuf blinked twice, trying to stay calm. He managed a smile, but it was a smile that bent under the weight of numbers. Amina's mother, Hajiya Rama, nearly fell off her stool. "Malam, kasa kakamana, let it be moderate," she begged softly. But Dogo adjusted his cap and said firmly, "Dignity has a price." That night, Amina lay awake on her raffia mat. Her mind ran in circles. She wanted to be a wife, not a burden. Outside, Yusuf tapped softly on the wall and called her name. When she came out, he handed her a meat pie wrapped in newspaper. "We'll manage," he said, pressing his hand to his chest. "Love is more stubborn than this list." She smiled faintly, but when a rooster crowed too early, it felt like the bird itself was warning, "Prepare, drama is coming." By the next morning, Dogo's list had already gone viral, not on social media, but in the only way compounds know, through the mouths of market women and gossipers. At the community well, women balanced buckets on their heads while weighing every outrageous demand. "Motorcycle for logistics?" one asked, scoffing. "What logistics? Is she marrying a transport company?" Another added, 20 wrappers? Even governors' wives don't collect that many at once. Laughter erupted, but there was bitterness in it too. Yusuf felt the sting. As a teacher, his salary stretched like old rubber, thin and ready to snap. He added more tutoring lessons to his schedule. In the mornings, he drilled children in multiplication tables. In the evenings, he coached teenagers on essay writing. At night, he returned home so tired he sometimes slept in his clothes. Yet every kobo he saved felt like carrying water in a basket, never enough. One evening, he walked into a bookshop and sold his most prized possession, a set of poetry anthologies he had once promised to read to Amina by lantern light. "They're worth more to me than the money," he told the seller, "but worth less than her smile." The man nodded, counted the notes, and Yusuf left with pockets heavier but heart lighter only by love. Meanwhile, Amina's mother visited Dogo again. She carried millet cake as a peace offering and sat on the mat with her brother. "Please, let us not make this hard," she pleaded. But Dogo shook his beads and said, "Sister, a marriage without honor becomes gossip. Let the boy bring it. He can." Rama left with tears hidden in her veil, praying God would soften a heart that felt carved from stone. By the third week, the compound was buzzing. Crates of soda appeared. Goats bleated near the gate. Wrappers folded neatly were counted by curious neighbors. Some marveled at Yusuf's persistence, others whispered that pride was driving him into debt. But every evening, Yusuf returned with another small miracle, a mattress tied precariously to a kiki napep, a ceiling fan balanced on his shoulder, and finally, a motorcycle key he had borrowed on trust. Love is stubbornness. But pride, in the eyes of a young man determined not to be shamed, is equally unyielding. One afternoon, the compound stirred with news. Imam Sule himself had come to visit. A tall man with a gentle beard and eyes like wells, the Imam was known for calming storms with words rather than shouts. He sat cross-legged in the courtyard with Amina, her mother, and Dogo. His voice carried wisdom, not volume. "My people," he began, "in Islam, the sadaqi belongs to the bride. It is her right, not the pocket of uncles. Cayenne leaf is a gift of love, not a tax to display wealth. Honor is not purchased, it is practiced." His words floated over the compound like incense. Dogo tilted his head, unbothered. "Imam, we are not forcing anyone. We are simply asking what is standard for a beautiful bride." His tone was smooth, but his eyes dared anyone to argue. Amina kept her gaze fixed on the floor, her hands twisting in her lap. The Imam didn't shout or debate. He let the silence sit heavy, forcing reflection. After a pause, he said only, "Moderation is sunnah." Then he rose, blessed the household, and left as quietly as he came. That evening, Amina's outspoken aunt, Zainabu, stormed into the compound, bangles clinking like small bells. "Enough," she declared. "If greed makes the road crooked, women will straighten it." Her words carried the kind of fire that made everyone sit straighter. Rama sighed in relief. At least someone had spoken boldly what she only whispered in prayer. Later, Yusuf met Amina at their usual corner near the kiosk. He handed her a cold malt and one suya stick. They once shared two before the list consumed his earnings. She teased, "Are you tired of me already?" He shook his head firmly. "Never. We will marry with or without this list. I promise." But when he tucked the borrowed motorcycle key deeper into his pocket, his shoulders slumped under a weight he did not name. The women of Kofar Na'isa were not to be underestimated. That week, they gathered under the guise of casual gossip in Zainabu's courtyard. But their talk was sharper than any market bargain. Fura was passed around in calabashes, but the real feast was strategy. "The boy is killing himself," Larai from the next street said. "Tomorrow, whose son will suffer when greed grows wings today?" Zainabu tapped the tray sharply. "A crooked fence will not straighten itself. If men won't lift it, we will." Heads nodded like prayer beads, each agreement tightening into resolve. The most surprising attendee was Dogo's wife, Hadiza. Known for her silence, she rarely spoke in public. But that day she lifted her veil slightly and said, "I am tired of being married to reputation tax. My husband wants respect he hasn't earned. If you have a plan, I will help." By evening, the women carried their decision to Imam Sule. "We will safeguard the gifts," Zainabu said firmly. "Lock them in the mosque storeroom until the wedding morning. In their place, we'll leave a note. Marriage is built on love, not gold. Let everyone hear wisdom in front of 1,000 eyes." The Imam's brows furrowed. He rubbed his beard slowly. "If you must do this, do it without malice. No one must take even a kobo. It must be teaching, not theft." The women agreed. Their voices were low, but their determination was loud enough to shake the air. Outside, drummers rehearsed for the wedding, unaware that a different kind of performance was being prepared. The night before the wedding came heavy with moonlight. The compound buzzed with preparations, frying fish, ironing gowns, and children chasing each other through corridors. But while the world slept, shadows began to move. One by one, the women emerged. Zainabu carried keys that jingled softly. Larai held a shawl to cover costly items. Hadiza brought a ledger, her calm hands ready to record. Together they worked like a quiet storm. Wrappers were folded into a trunk. Crates of soda were rolled across the sand. Goats were led silently past doorways where men snored. Even the mattress was carried, tilted like a canoe, by two teenage boys who thought they were helping with a normal errand. The items were taken to the mosque storeroom, where Imam Sule waited with a lantern glowing like a halo. He counted each item carefully, blessing them with whispered prayers. Nothing was stolen, nothing lost, just hidden for a greater purpose. Only the motorcycle key almost ruined the plan. Yusuf, nervous and restless, had tucked it under his mat as if keeping it close could guard it. Zainabu found it only after Hadiza cleverly distracted him with, "Yarrow, go and buy me matches." By the time he returned, sweaty from running, the key was gone, but so was his worry. He didn't notice. At last, Zainabu unfolded a sheet of paper, wrote boldly in Hausa, and placed it where the mountain of gifts once stood, or Soyaya ikjina shur, Ba de zinari ba. Marriage is built on love, not gold. She pressed the paper flat, whispering, "Tomorrow teach." The compound exhaled. A baby cried, then slept. Somewhere, a rooster crowed too early again, as if it too couldn't wait for morning. Morning arrived in Kofar Na'isa dressed in color and music. The air smelled of fried masa, the women's jellies rose like crowns, and henna designs glowed like little constellations on palms and feet. The courtyard had been swept clean, drummers beat their talking drums in playful rehearsal, and children dashed about carrying plates of puff-puff meant for honored guests. Yusuf stood tall in his new kaftan, the fabric a gift from a grateful parent at his school. His eyes searched for Amina, who peeked shyly from her mother's room, her veil casting a golden glow over her face. If hearts could drum, his was beating louder than the musicians. Then came Dogo, the self-appointed master of ceremonies, strutting like a cock in borrowed shoes. He barked at nephews about chairs, argued with caterers, then positioned himself beside what he believed would be his stage, the mountain of gifts. His eyes gleamed like polished coins as he prepared to display his niece's marriage as proof of his own status. But when the guests leaned forward to admire the bounty, a gasp cut the air. The mountain was gone. No wrappers, no crates, not even the stubborn mattress. The goats tied by the tree bleated in confusion, as though embarrassed at being left behind. At the center of the mat, where wealth should have glittered, lay only one folded sheet of white paper. Who touched the things? Dogo thundered, voice cracking like a faulty loudspeaker. He lunged forward, snatched the note, and unfolded it with trembling hands. The words, written in bold Hausa, seemed to shine brighter than gold. Or Soyaya ikjina shur, Ba de zinari ba. Marriage is built on love, not gold. The courtyard froze. Then whispers ran like quick water. Women hid their smiles behind veils, men cleared their throats nervously, and a few bold children repeated the words aloud as if learning a new proverb. Amina's breath caught, then released in relief. Yusuf reached for her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. Dogo sputtered like a man choking on his own ego. "Thieves! This is sacrilege," he shouted, pointing at the sky and then at the Imam, who was already rising to his feet. "Nothing has been stolen," Imam Sule said firmly, his calm voice louder than the drums. "But today, something greater will be taught." By noon, the courtyard had turned into a village assembly. People gathered beneath the wide neem tree, their chatter buzzing like a market on payday. A woven mat became the stage for justice, and on it sat Imam Sule, his prayer beads turning slowly. "My people," he began, "bride price is not a competition. Sadaki belongs to the bride. Kayan leaf is love, not extortion. We must not turn honor into a market stall where dignity is sold by the dozen." Dogo's face darkened. "Is it a crime to want respect?" he demanded, his voice thick with wounded pride. "Should my niece be married as if she is cheap?" Before the Imam could answer, Auntie Zainabu leapt into the fray. "Respect does not arrive on a motorcycle," she declared, her eyes flashing. Laughter erupted, some stifled, some bold. Even the goat tied near the neem tree bleated as if in agreement. Hadiza, Dogo's long-suffering wife, spoke next, her voice calm but cutting. "When did we begin to measure a girl's worth by how her uncle's eyes shine? Marriage is for two hearts, not for greedy pockets." Heads nodded around her like millet in the wind. The Imam lifted a hand for quiet. He gestured toward two young men, who dashed off and returned moments later. The mosque's storeroom door opened, and out came the hidden treasures, wrappers neatly folded, crates stacked, goats led with ropes, the mattress balanced like cargo, and finally, the motorcycle key raised high. The crowd gasped, then shouted subhanallah. The gifts had not vanished, they had been guarded. The Imam held up the ledger. "We kept them safe," he said, "so that everyone might remember, love is greater than wealth." He handed the book to Amina. The note, now pinned to its cover, fluttered in the breeze like a flag of truth. Dogo sank back onto the mat, his knees bending before his pride could protest. Silence spread, heavy as harmattan dust. All eyes rested on Dogo, who fidgeted with his cap. For the first time in years, his voice faltered. He tried to speak, swallowed, then cleared his throat twice before finding words. I only wanted respect for my family," he stammered. His eyes darted to Amina. "Perhaps I asked too much. Forgive me." The courtyard stirred. Some gasped, others exchanged knowing looks. Hadiza whispered under her breath, "Finally." The Imam nodded. Apologizing does not shrink a man. It grows him. He placed a hand on Dogo's shoulder. "But words must become deeds. To restore balance, Malam Dogo will sponsor the repair of our mosque well, in the couple's name." A cheer rose, equal parts surprise and delight. Dogo grimaced but nodded. "I will do it." Zainabu clapped her hands sharply. "Good. Let water flow where greed tried to block. Let generosity repair what pride tried to spoil." Even the women who had muttered in corners now laughed freely. Then the gifts were presented again, but differently. This time, no pile for Dogo to perch on. Instead, the wrappers were handed directly to Amina's mother, the mattress leaned kindly against the wall, the crates placed beside the kitchen, and the motorcycle key dropped playfully into Yusuf's palm. The message was clear. These things belonged to love, not to an uncle's pride. As the crowd dispersed, children skipped around chanting the new proverb, "Marriage is built on love, not gold." Dogo watched them, his cheeks hot, his beads moving faster than usual. But even he couldn't deny it. The lesson had already spread beyond his control. Despite the morning's drama, the wedding carried on. In fact, it blossomed brighter. Drummers found their rhythm, women's ululations soared into the sky, and the aroma of tuo and mayan taushi filled the air. The compound that had been tense now throbbed with laughter and song. Amina's henna'd hands sparkled as she walked gracefully into the courtyard. Yusuf's grin stretched so wide it refused to shrink even when teased by his friends. The Imam's voice wove prayers like a fine cloth, blessing their union with words that made even the hardened men wipe at their eyes. "Gentleness is strength. Patience is furniture," the Imam advised as he joined their hands. The crowd chorused Amin in unison, their voices rising like birds taking flight. Gifts poured in, not the demanded list, but heartfelt tokens. A neighbor brought a small bookshelf for Yusuf's classroom. Another gifted a sewing kit for Amina's new home. A framed calligraphy of the very proverb that had shamed Dogo was carried in with pride. Each gift came with smiles and stories, not with receipts. Even Dogo, humbled and tired, helped serve water. He avoided eye contact, but his actions spoke louder than his ego. For once, his beads turned slowly, not in greedy calculation but in quiet zikr. That night, after the music faded and the last guest left, Amina and Yusuf entered their modest room. She placed the framed calligraphy on a shelf, and he set his chalk box beside it. "Shall we read poetry again?" he asked. Amina smiled softly. "Later. Tonight we begin writing our own." Months later, Kofar Na'isa carried a new rhythm. The repaired mosque well gurgled with fresh water, and children splashed their feet in its overflow. On the stone wall, a plaque gleamed. "Ba soyaya ba zinari, marriage is built on love, not gold." Donated by Malam Dogo, in honor of Amina and Yusuf. People gathered daily, not only for water but for the story the well carried. Mothers told their daughters, "Don't let greed decide your marriage." Men reminded each other, "Don't let pride block love." The proverb had left the paper and entered living memory. Amina now ran a small corner for neighborhood girls, teaching both sewing and literacy. Her machine hummed like a happy cat, stitching dreams into fabric. Yusuf's classroom blossomed with new books donated by the community, replacing the poetry he once sold. Sometimes he read aloud while Amina embroidered borders, their quiet companionship as steady as the ticking of a clock. As for Dogo, he changed, slowly but noticeably. He learned the art of arriving without noise. He repaired a neighbor's fence without announcing it. At another wedding, he carried chairs instead of demanding gifts. People noticed. They whispered, perhaps the proverb tamed him. One evening, a young couple fetched water at the well. The bride, reading the plaque, smiled. "Who wrote that line?" she asked. Amina, passing by with a bundle of wrappers, replied without stopping, "A community that refused to confuse price with value." The breeze lifted her veil. The dusk settled like a blessing. And the well, steady and generous, kept giving, just like love does when pride has finally learned its place. If you enjoyed and learned from this story, like and subscribe to this channel for more stories. We shall see again. Thank you.